Hello, and welcome to episode 72 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a podcast that seems to appear at random intervals, all about the joys of small-scale knitting. So, I'm back. Hopefully, we're back into the regular groove of things. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andy. I like knitting small things, and this podcast, I think I recorded the last episode more than a month ago. So, it was a little weird to get back in the chair. You can see that my background has changed a little bit, so let's talk about that. So I thought I would really briefly just go through what I've been up to since I last recorded. According to my records on my computer, I put up the last not even episode, that little interlude about having some nerve damage on July 31st or August 1st, right around there. So it's been a month now. So let's really briefly go over what's happened in the past month. I'll expand more on this stuff in the chit chat section, but just in case you don't want to listen to that because it might get really long, here's what I've been up to in the past month. So, I recorded that last little blip to say that, I had some issues when I got blood drawn and had some nerve damage, and I wasn't sure how long it was going to be until I got better. So that was an instance where it turned out I should have listened to my doctor because he knew better than the internet. He said that, 2 or 3 weeks it'll be gone. He was totally right. So, I recorded that on the 31st or the 1st, somewhere right around there. And then by the time that we left for our vacation, which I recorded a vlog of, but we left for our vacation on the 11th of August, I was 99% better. And then by the time we got back, I was 100% better. So turns out it didn't last as long as I thought it would. But whatever. So what have I been up to, right? So I went on vacation, right? We went on vacation. I posted that vlog of that. That was a lot of fun. If you watched the vlog, you saw what we got up to a little bit. It was one of those vacations where we came back needing a vacation from our vacation because it was just very busy. So we did that, and then we came back, and I got right back into work. And then that same week, fall semester started for us. So that's been fun because I'm taking a class and, of course, teaching this semester. So, I've been trying to get into the flow of that stuff. And then also, a couple days after we got back, I got sick. And I might still sound a little bit sick. I'm still just a little bit congested at the tail end of it. I got hit with a really nasty cold, which was no fun. And luckily, Wesley didn't seem to have gotten sick. I did that. And then the other two big important pieces of news, and one directly causes the other. So right before we left on vacation, we found out that Wesley had gotten a firm job offer. So he got a job, which is very exciting. He'll be starting that towards the start of October. It also is not here in Richmond. So he's going to be moving up to New Hampshire. And because of that, we had to buy a car, right? If you've been around for a while and remember, our car got hit way back in May and hadn't been drivable. And then it turned out it got totaled. So, we've been without a car since May. We've been making it work. We've been Ubering and, renting cars and stuff like that. But we knew we were going to have to buy a car at some point. We were just trying to put it off until we absolutely needed to buy a car. And now that we knew he was getting a job and was going to be moving, now it was time to get a car. So then once we got back from vacation, we went and bought a car. So now we have a car, which I will show you guys at some point in a vlog probably. We haven't quite gotten it all washed and shined yet. So I don't really want to show it off yet because it's very dirty, just from, sitting in the lot and stuff. But so we bought a car. And that brings us to now. So the day that I'm recording, it is currently Sunday, September 3rd, and this episode should go up on Tuesday, September 5th. So that's the really brief what I've been up to in the past month. For the rest of this episode, we will talk, about the normal stuff. We'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, sort of what's on my plate to come up next, although I don't really have anything. We'll talk about some dyeing that I've been doing, which you can actually see a sneak peek of right here. We'll talk about knit-along stuff. We'll see if I can come up with a question of the week before then, and then we'll do a more detailed sort of what's been going on in my life since I last recorded. So that's sort of what today looks like. And as you guys can see, I think I mentioned this, but I changed sort of my background. I'm currently sitting in the corner of our bedroom, so This is that mantle that I used to record in front of when I first started podcasting. So this is sort of that like faux fireplace mantle. And we moved one of the bookshelves from our living room into here. I got this big fancy new plant. This is our circuit breaker box. But yeah, this was just sort of a corner that used to have stuff in it, and then Wesley cleared some stuff out of it, and now it's going to be my podcasting corner. And this entire bookshelf behind me is devoted to my knitting stuff, right? So you can see there's a bunch of yarn on it, and then in the cupboards underneath is some other yarn storage stuff that I didn't want out on the shelves. So yay! But let's talk finished objects. I actually only have one finished object to show you guys. So like I said, I was back to knitting probably, right around the time we left on vacation. So I have been knitting since then, and I have lots of knitting to show you guys, but a lot of it is not done. So I have one thing to show off, and that is the cowl that I was making. And I think I was calling this like my unicorn barf cowl or my color barf cowl. But this is that cowl that is inspired by the Treppenviertel cowl, and I say inspired by because I didn't actually use that pattern. I just sort of looked at the pictures and approximated what I thought the pattern would be, and came out with what I think looks like their finished objects. So this is what it looks like. So this is the front of it, and of course it's not picking up the colors. I'll see if I can adjust the colors in editing, but it is like crazy bright. But it basically is, this ribbing on top. So on the top it forms this nice sort of like turtleneck sort of thing, and then at the bottom it forms this point, and you have sort of these the way that that's done is sort of by shaping with what I call like horizontal ribbing, which is alternating stockinette and reverse stockinette patches, and then with the 2x2 ribbing, right? So the 2x2 ribbing sort of radiates out from the point, and the horizontal ribbing sort of decreases as you go up. So it's a very interesting way that you do this. Like, you create all of this shaping without actually ever having to increase or decrease stitches, at least the way that I did it. So it's really cool. Let's see if I can show you guys sort of that up close and get the camera to focus. So that's sort of what that looks like along that diagonal. And that's a sort of better look at what the yarn looks like. This is a yarn that I dyed up myself a while ago, and it was just really bright and colorful and hard to kind of do anything with. But yeah, this is what it looks like. I can put it on for you guys so you can see what it looks like on. So as you can see, the point is supposed to sort of be worn down towards the center. And unfortunately, this one I cast on just a little bit tight, so like the bottom kind of wants to curl when I have it on. And then you can either sort of wear it bunched up like this, or you can, sort of pull it up over your face, which smells delightful because I actually like washed this with soap and it smells really good. Or you can kind of fold over to like have a double warm layer around your neck. But I think I've mentioned this before, I really like things like this because scarves I find, either slowly choke me throughout the time that I'm wearing them, or they wind up, coming undone. So I really like things like this, which are not a scarf, they have no ends, and they're just going to kind of stay in place and keep you warm while you wear them without a lot of fussing around about them. So yeah, that is the one finished object I have to show you guys at this point. So then for works in progress, I have a couple to show you guys, and I'm going to try and go from like oldest to newest, like the oldest start date to the newest start date. So yeah, the first one is actually related to the finished object, right? So I finished that that cowl before we left for vacation, and then I decided I would start another one because it's a pretty easy pattern to do kind of once you get the hang of it, and you don't really have to keep referring to any sort of directions. You just sort of read your knitting. So I was like, okay, that'll be good for like plain knitting and just sort of like some mindless knitting. And the nice thing is that, because it's sort of a one size fits all, I don't even have to worry about like, like with a pair of socks, like, oh, am I getting close to the toe? Like, how long are these? I just keep knitting until I'm done with this thing. So I cast on another one, and the yarn that I'm using for it, again, is another hand-dyed yarn that I dyed a long, long time ago. This is like that first base that I ever bought. It's a 75-25 BFL nylon, and I dyed it this really sort of solid, deep red color. And it really suits this pattern well. And so I basically did the same sort of thing, right? The same sort of concept, except this time I also added this little cable motif to the front. Let's see if I can sort of get it close enough for you guys to see that. So that's what that cable motif looks like. Oh, I don't know why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to do things on camera? So that's what that looks like. It shows up a lot better in person because, you know, the yarn is fairly dark. And so you get these nice like shadows in person. And this motif came off of, I think they're called the Vivid Mitts. I'll of course link to them. Oh, speaking of links, if you're looking for any patterns or shops or websites or anything that I mentioned today, links, well, so if you're watching this on the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, all the links will be right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description box below to the blog post. You can go there and then find all the links. I'm out of practice, guys. But anyway, I think this came off of the Vivid Mitts, and it was just a really simple sort of cable pattern that I thought fit this very well, but otherwise everything else is the same. So yeah, now I'm to the point where I'm just doing endless 2x2 ribbing, and that's kind of why I've set it down for a little while, is just because it's kind of boring, but it's definitely something that once I finish my current at work project, I will probably take this into work and work on it there and get it finished up. So that's work in progress number 1. And I have no idea who this is going to be for. It's probably going to be a Christmas gift for someone, just because I'm going to keep the one that I showed you guys as a finished object because it is so bright. So I don't need 2. So this one I will probably give to someone else. But yeah, so that's work in progress number 1. And then work in progress number 2 is something that I started while we were on vacation. And that's because I got way too excited about some yarn that I bought and just had to cast it on. And I'm trying to think of where I put the label for this, because I took the label off the ball and don't know where I put it. But anyway, that's okay. So this is a pair of socks that I'm currently knitting at work. And this is being made out of Regia Perfect because I found a ball that I totally fell in love with when we were back in Minnesota and bought it. This is the Arnie and Carlos design line of the Perfect, which I think are just magnificent. I mean, I love Perfect yarn anyway. I don't know, you guys won't be able to see it, but there's actually a ball right in the corner there. I love Perfect yarn because it just, you know, makes sock knitting really brainless. And I especially like the Arnie and Carlos ones. So this is the first sock, which is finished, which is why I'm not too concerned about finding the label for you guys. But yeah, this is just a really basic vanilla sock, Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I really like doing the Fish Lips Kiss Heel with these Perfect ones because I think that's really what they're made for. Like if you sort of look on the picture that's on the ball band, they always have a short row heel, so I always do a short row heel. But otherwise, I love it. Like it's just so much color and design without having to do anything. And I guess if you're unfamiliar with the Perfect line, basically what it is it's yarn that comes in a ball like this, and it has these yellow bits. And so you start from the center and you pull out a little bit of yellow yarn, and as soon as that yellow yarn runs out, you cut the yellow off and then you cast on. And it is printed in this design so that you just knit and knit and knit and knit, and this is the sock that comes out of it. And then once you've finished up this sock, you pull out the rest of the yarn in this color, and then you'll hit another patch of yellow. So you pull out that yellow yarn, you cut the yarn, and then you cast on, and you will wind up with an identical sock, right? So it's basically this printed yarn that produces 2 identical socks without you having to do anything except just make sure that you start where the yellow yarn ends. So I really love it. I think it's great. It's a little pricey, but you know, for vanilla socks, I think it's worth the investment. And these things wear like iron. I have another pair of socks that I made with the Perfect yarn that just, you would think they're brand new. Like they just wear great. So this is the first one finished. The second one, I am still working on the cuff. And this, I'm actually knitting these on a US 1, but this is a new pair of needles that, again, I got back in Minnesota. And these are my very first pair of carbons. And the whole thing about carbons is that they are carbon fiber shafts here. So it's like you kind of get the best of both worlds between metal and wood, where it's like, you know, they're not metal, so they have just a little bit of give to them, and they're a little bit like warmer, like they're not quite as cold as metal is, but they're also more durable than wood, or so they say. And I've been liking them just fine. I bought one so that I could magic loop because I've sort of been enjoying magic looping again. I don't know, it's weird. I go back and forth on liking and disliking magic loop. But especially for travel, I really was enjoying magic loop because like then you don't have the extra needle points bonking all over the place. The only thing I don't like about these, and I think that's just this particular pair of needles, is that this particular pair of needles has like a little rough spot on one of the tips. and I don't really know why. I think I just got like a pair of needles that just had a little bit chewed up tip, but otherwise I totally like them and I would buy more of them. Again, pricey, but I think they're worth it. And the cable is nice and flexible for doing magic loops, so no complaints other than the slightly chewed up tip on one of them. So yeah, that's been my work in progress. And like I said, once I finish up with these, I'll probably take that other cowl into work and try and get that finished up too. But yeah, I've really been enjoying them and I am excited to wear them this winter. So that's that. And then, let's talk about a work in progress that is no longer a work in progress. My Viajante, I frogged it. I had been working on it. I was getting, I was still just on the first ball of yarn, but I was kind of getting to the end of the first ball of yarn. And, then we left on vacation. And of course I didn't want to bring it with me because it's very large. And when we got back, I just kind of realized that it didn't really fit in with this idea I have of my wardrobe. Like, I know I said that, oh my gosh, this is going to be perfect and this is going to be great. And then while we were in Minnesota, if you watch the vlog, I bought a whole new wardrobe while we were up there. And then when I kind of looked at that and looked at the Viajante, I realized it didn't really fit and that it's not really a practical thing for me to wear because, my job involves a lot of like moving. And so a big shawl like that just isn't really practical for me. So I wound up frogging it. And I'm actually reusing the yarn for another project that I will show you guys in just a minute. But yeah, that has been frogged. So I might knit one again in the future, but I would definitely probably knit it as like a gift for someone. And at this point, I just didn't want to keep going with the current one because I really love the yarn and I really want to keep the yarn for me because I'm selfish. And I, figured if I'm going to knit one as a gift for someone, I want to go into it knowing that rather than sort of figuring that out midway through. And speaking of things that have been frogged, this is a project that is going to be frogged, but I figured I'd wait and show it to you guys so that it looks like I've actually been knitting things. But this is a sock that I was attempting to make to have like a little heel tab on the back of it. Sort of like some athletic socks have that, where it's like they're low cut socks, but they have like a little bumpy thing on your heel so that it doesn't slip underneath the heel of your shoe. And this is because, I mentioned this before, but I've had a lot of failed attempts at making short socks, because if I make them too short, then they get like just sucked into my shoe underneath my heel. I must just like have a narrow heel or something. But the problem is that, the short socks that I make now are just like a little bit taller than I would prefer. So I thought I'd go ahead and try and add a heel tab and see if that would help by like pushing up the back of the sock without making the rest of the sock really high. So this was my attempt, and this is sort of what it looks like. It's getting a little bit washed out, but this is what it looks like. And the reason I'm going to frog this is because this heel tab is too big. I definitely should have started it maybe about half as tall as it is. But basically, it's just done using short rows. Like you cast on, and then you just do this like short row tab, and then you do the rest of your sock as normal. And yeah, this one is just too tall. So I'm going to do it again probably, but shorter. But there's no reason to keep going on this sock if it's not going to work. So this is sort of what that looks like. And if I figure it out, I will definitely, put up a project page or something for it that has directions on how I just did just the heel tab. Because I think you could probably add this to any sock that's short if you have the same problem I do. Apparently not everyone has the same problem I do, because like no-show socks are definitely all over the place in stores, and there's plenty of no-show sock patterns, but they just never seem to work very well for me, so go figure. But anyway, this is going to get frogged probably as soon as I get done recording. I just wanted to save it to show it to you guys so you could see that I was doing it, I guess. But then that brings us to our last work in progress, which is what's using the yarn that I was making my Viajante out of. And let's see, where is that? As a reminder, this is what that yarn looks like. It's this like blue purple sort of yarn that I dyed up myself. This is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon base, fingering weight. So it's this really pretty color. I dyed up 3 skeins of it for the Viajante, and this is just the one that hasn't been rolled up into a ball yet. This is the skein that was the Viajante, and I need to reskein this and wash it, and I just was really lazy. So I sort of put this off to the side. I had 2 of these skeins that hadn't been touched, so I balled up another one to start this next project, and then this one needs to get washed soon. But anyway, so I have 3 skeins of this, and with this yarn, I am making I think it's called a Tempest cardigan. And this is a pattern from Nitty. It's a pretty old, it's a pretty old pattern. And it is my very first seamed sweater. And the reason that I chose to do a seamed sweater, right? So if you guys have been around for a while, you know that I made a poly, which is a seamless top-down raglan cardigan. And I really liked it. I was really proud of it. I wear it all the time at work, in my office. But something I noticed about like that, sort of seamless construction is that it just got to be so heavy as I got to the bottom of it. And also like, when I was putting on the button band, like it was just really tough, and like working on the sleeves was really tough because, you have all the weight of the body of that cardigan just hanging off of your needles. And it just got to be really hard to knit on. It got to be really hard on my wrists, and I just didn't really enjoy it once it got to be that heavy. So then I was thinking, okay, well maybe I should try doing a seamed cardigan, because I'm not a huge fan of like finishing on knitted projects, and like I've never seamed anything before, but like, you know what? It's a small part of it, and if that's the price that I pay for getting to do the rest of it in pieces, which I would probably enjoy more, then, I'd rather do that. And I think I opened up the curtains to this side because I wanted to let in more light, but now this side is like really light, so I think I'm going to close these again really quick. Or at least close them a little bit so that it's not quite so bad. That's better. Okay, so anyway, so this is a seamed cardigan. It's knit at a pretty loose gauge because it's knit with fingering weight yarn on decently large needles. The pattern calls for US 6s, which is a 4mm needle. I'm using a US 7, which is I think 4.5mm needle. Yeah, 4.5mm needle. I stopped in the middle of the row because I was knitting on it while the last clip was saving. So yeah, but so I'm knitting it on a US 7 because that's what it took to get gauge. And you guys, I don't really like doing gauge swatches. I actually did a gauge swatch, like a proper gauge swatch, and I washed it and everything because, with this being a seamed cardigan, I can't try on I can't try it on as I go. So I kind of have to just trust in the pattern and hope that it fits at the end. So that's why I really made an effort to get gauge. But you can kind of see just how loose this is. Like you can kind of see things through it. It's not so loose that I'm uncomfortable with it. And especially because the yarn that I'm knitting this with is a pretty plush, like squishy, like nice sock yarn that really blooms. I think it'll be fine. It's just going to be a nice lightweight cardigan. But yeah, this is the same base of yarn. It's just some remnants that I had. But yeah, made a gauge swatch and everything, and I am currently now working on the back of it. So this is what the back looks like. Again, you can kind of like see through it a little bit, so you can see how loosely that's knit. But yeah, the changes that I have made to the pattern, I've mostly changed things that appear in the body of the cardigan and shouldn't make any difference based on like the fit of the sleeves or anything. Because that's the only part I'm really concerned about, is like making sure that like the arms and the shoulders and everything fit properly. So the things that I'm doing differently is I am not doing any waist shaping because this cardigan has some pretty like dramatic waist shaping. And again, I've talked about this before, but I have a very long torso, and so it's kind of tough to figure out like where on me should the waist shaping go. And I also wanted to lengthen the body a little bit. Plus, I just sort of like boxier sweaters. I just think they look good on me. So I decided not to do any waist shaping. It's also written to be a striped cardigan. I'm not doing any striping. I actually thought I was going to do striping. I knit up a swatch to see how the colors I was going to stripe would look together. And the color that I was going to stripe with it is this sort of tan color that I have in this Cascade Heritage silk. And I thought that they would look pretty good together. And then I did a little swatch of it, and I just didn't really like the way that it looked, because I didn't like that, this is a hand-dyed yarn that has lots of variation to it, and this is a commercially dyed yarn that's just solid. And I just didn't really think they looked good together. Plus, I think just the solid color will look better with my wardrobe. Also, I'm liking this tan color less and less the more I look at it, because I think it's just too close to my skin tone. So I will probably over-dye this later to be a different color. But anyway, so that did not work out. And so I decided to just do it solid and really just showcase this blue yarn. And I did the ribbing at the bottom when I cast on the bottom piece. So the way that this sweater is done, right, so you knit all the pieces separately, you seam them all up, and then you put on, oh my gosh, how is it that you do this? You put on the button bands and the neckband, and then you put on the bottom, like, the bottom edging, but it doesn't have you doing ribbing at the bottom, I don't think. I think it's just sort of like a little hem that you do at the bottom. And so I decided I would like it to be ribbed at the bottom, so I just cast on with a US 5 at the bottom, because that's the size needle that I will be using for the like neckband and the button band and everything. So I cast on with the US 5, I did 20 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then I switched to the 7 to do the rest of the body. So, which I don't think will impact anything. I'll just make sure to do the same thing on the front pieces as well. But yeah, otherwise right now I'm just sort of in the sea of stockinette as I make my way up to the arm shaping. I am currently, let's see, 10, 20, or 20, 40, 60. I think I'm nearing row 80, and I calculated that I need to do 130 rows of the body before I start doing the arm shaping to get the extra length in the torso. Also, pro tip, what I do to keep track of rows, I've used a lot of like row counting apps. I've used the little row counter like doodads that you can tie to like your yarn or whatever. I never like those because I always forget to like count my rows as I go. So the trick that I use this both on sweaters, I use this on socks, I use it on anything where I'm counting a large number of rows, is I put on these little lobster clasps as I go, right? Like you could put on progress keepers if you have them. I just don't have any, so I just use the little lobster clasps by themselves. Also, clasps is a hard word to say and enunciate, but and these are just super cheap. So I just buy them in like 10 or 20 packs and just put them on. But this way I just mark off like every 10 or 20 rows depending on what I'm making. So these are marking off every 20 rows. And it's nice because then I don't have to like count all the way from the beginning. I know that, from here, from this lobster clasp, this marks off row 40, right? So I just count up from the last one and then I mark it off every 20 rows. And I make sure to like double and triple count to make sure I'm not counting wrong. But it just makes my life a heck of a lot easier in terms of counting things. So, I can kind of eyeball how many rows I need, right? So I know like the distance between these two. So I kind of know what 20 looks like. And so, that's how I can see that like, oh, this marks row 60 and I'm getting to be about that distance away. So, every so often I'll count how many rows I have. And then once I hit 20, I'll just throw another lobster clasp on there to keep track of how many rows I have. So like I said, I do that on socks as well. If I want to make sure that my row count on socks matches up exactly, I do the same thing. So yeah, that's that. It's really flying along because like I said, it's knit on pretty large needles for the size of yarn that it is. And I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that maybe, by the end of the weekend I'll have finished up the back piece because I also have tomorrow off of work because it's Labor Day here in the US. But yeah, I'm just super duper excited, and I'm super excited to sort of share the process with you guys as I make my very first seamed sweater because I have to learn how to sew seams. So if you know of any good tutorials on how to sew up seams on sweaters, let me know because I'm going to have to learn. And I'll definitely practice on swatches first, but that'll be a good skill for me to learn, I guess. But that's all for my works in progress. Yeah, I have a lot, but I guess not really. I guess I really only have 3, so that's not so bad. But yeah, that's for works in progress. So next we will talk a little bit about some dyeing that I've been doing. I don't remember if I mentioned this in my vlog, but when we were back in Minnesota, I ordered some more yarn so that it would be here when we got back from vacation. So I tried 2 new yarn bases, and these both came from the same place that I got my very first batch of yarn from, which is Wool to Dye For. And I believe their website is just wool and then the number 2 dye, DYE, and then the number 4.com. And it's really nice because they are here in Virginia, so shipping is usually super quick. So they were here by the time we got back from vacation, and the 2 bases that I decided to try out, these are both bases that I hadn't tried before. This one is called the BFL 4 Socking, and it is a 4-ply, 100% superwash BFL fingering weight base. And I don't know, I haven't necessarily knit with it yet, so I'm not exactly sure if I would necessarily like make socks out of this without any sort of reinforcement for the heel because there's no nylon in it. But I definitely think you could as long as you knit it at a tight enough gauge. So that's this one. Not like these look any different to you guys. Actually, they do. They're slightly different colors. The BFL is slightly more cream than this other one. And then this is what I think is their platinum sock. And this is a 75-25 merino, superwash merino nylon base. And it's just this really nice, tightly plied, I think, again, it's a 4-ply, nice and floppy, squishy sock yarn base. So these are the ones that I've been playing with lately. And something else I did once we got back is I went out and bought a giant like lobster pot basically for two reasons. One, I wanted to be able to dye more than one skein at a time, and with the pot that I have in our kitchen that I use, it basically only fits one skein, like 100-gram skein of fingering weight yarn. And also it's an enameled cast iron pot, and I really love it. Like, it was a Christmas gift. It's like my favorite piece of cookware. And I'm pretty sure that it's starting to get pits in the bottom of it from like heating up acidic liquid in it over and over and over and over again. So I want to try and prolong the life of it as much as I can. So I'm going to try and do all of my dyeing, or most of my dyeing now, in other pots. So I went out and just bought this pot. This is just a cheap stainless steel pot that I got from Walmart. And so this way it's nice and big. You can see it's really, really big. And this way, you know, if I ruin this one, no big deal. I didn't spend very much money on it, and it doesn't mean anything to me. But yeah, it can hold a decent amount of yarn at a time. It's like, I think 16 quarts. So it takes forever to fill it up with water. I actually, depending on how patient I am, I'll take it into our bathroom and fill it up in the bathtub with water, because that's just easier. But yeah, you can actually see, I mean, if I really wanted to squish a bunch of yarn into it, I totally can. But I put the yarn in here so I could pull it out and show you guys with it on my lap. But this is what I've been dyeing up since we got back. This first one, actually, I had finished before we left, but I don't think I ever showed you guys the finished product. This is the Galaxy yarn that I did. And this is sort of a highly variegated yarn with blues and pinks and purples and sort of like that galaxy color scheme. And this is on my old 80/20 superwash merino nylon base. This was the very last skein of it that I had, and this, I just had a lot of fun dyeing. Each color was added individually, and I'll talk in a minute about how I do that in case you guys want to try it yourselves. But each color was added individually. So like first I did, you know, all the pink, and then I did all the blue, and then I did all the purple. So it creates this really fun, highly variegated skein like that. So that's that. Okay, so then the first one that I dyed as soon as we got back is this skein. This is on the BFL base. And again, this is just like a really dark purpley blue that, of course, the camera hates. I don't know why the camera hates purple so much. I'm going to try and get Wesley to take pictures of these for me as well, because all of these are going to go get listed in my Etsy shop sometime later this week. So I'm going to try and get Wesley to take pictures of them for me today. So if he does that before I edit this video, I'll put in pictures. But yeah, this is what that looks like. It's a subtly tonal, but really just dark kind of indigo purple. Bloop. And then the next one I did is, this was on the merino base. This one is sort of meant to be like fall leaves. And it's these sort of pastel greens and oranges and reds and yellows and browns, with a lot of sort of the natural cream in there. And this one Wesley named, and he called it Autumn Breeze, I think. So that's one that he named because he really liked it. So that's that one. And then this one, again, is on that nylon base. This is another one that I dyed up the same night that I did the previous one. And this one is a little bit more sort of like a goldeny color base with, again, some greens and some, I think, even purples and stuff in there. I meant for this to be more saturated. It just didn't work out that way. I was thinking sort of like Halloween colors with like bright orange and bright purple and bright green, and instead this is what I got, which I think is beautiful. I love it anyway. But this one I think I called Fall Festival, because now it kind of reminds me of like hay rides and, you know, things like that, more of a fall thing. If you couldn't tell, I've got fall on the brain because it's finally started getting cool here, and it's great. So then, let's see, what did I do next? So then next, because I had fall on the brain, and because I've been seeing a lot of stores like putting out fall things, and of course everything is pumpkin spice, I decided I wanted to try and dye up a pumpkin spice latte colorway. And I actually call this colorway that pumpkin drink. And this is going to be an attempt at doing sort of a repeatable colorway that I will sell dyed to order. So I currently have 3 skeins of it dyed up just because I wanted to make sure that I could reproduce it pretty much exactly. And then I think when I list this on my Etsy shop, I will, because I have some skeins left that I haven't dyed, I will just list the quantity as however many skeins of that base that I have left. And if they sell, they sell, and I'll dye them to order. And if not, then I'll dye them some other time. But this is going to be my fall colorway, and this is what it looks like. So it's this very bright, again, subtly tonal, because it's very saturated, orange color. And what this makes me think of, if you've had a pumpkin spice latte, and I've talked about pumpkin spice lattes before, I don't like them. I think they're kind of gross. But if you have one and you look at the top of it, there's kind of this like weird orange oily film that forms on the top of it. It's kind of gross. So like maybe don't look at it. But that's what this makes me think of. So this is on the merino base. This is on the BFL base. So you can see they're more or less identical. I have another one that I dyed up on the merino base. So you can see, like, I would, if I can grip all of these at once, I would consider these to be identical enough that I would knit a sweater out of them, right? Like I would consider them to be consistent enough, at least as far as, hand-dyed yarn goes. Because of course, there's always going to be variations from skein to skein, but I would consider these to be the same colorway. So yeah, that's sort of my plan for these, is to sort of dye them up to order as people want them. So that's my sort of like fall colorway, is this orange color that I'm calling that pumpkin drink. Oh no, I lost one. Oh no. Get over there. So I did those, and then I think the next one I did was this one, which again is on the BFL base, and this one is called Blue on You, and it's sort of this like light teal sort of color. It's showing up very, very blue right now. We'll see if I can tweak those colors, but it's sort of got a lot of like mint green in it as well, and it's just supposed to be, I don't know, sort of like a tropical sort of thing, right? So for the end of summer, sort of to keep those tropical vibes going. But that's what that one looks like. And that's the only one of that one. And then I dyed up these two skeins, which I dyed at the same time. This is, not repeatable. The only ones that are repeatable are that fall colorway, and then I'm going to show you guys a Christmas colorway as well. But the rest of these are all going to be, kind of non-repeatable colorways. But the nice thing about, again, having this giant pot is that even though it's non-repeatable, I can dye multiple skeins at once. So these were dyed at the same time. This is the BFL base, this is the merino base, and they actually were dyed using the same technique, but I like twisted them up differently, so like you can sort of see how the colors look. So it's sort of this like ombre. This one sort of shows what the yarn looks like. So it's sort of this ombre that goes from purple on one end to this sort of very, dusty blue purple on the other end. And then this one I just skeined up a little bit differently to show the two colors next to each other. So that's what that one looks like. And I forget, I called this blurple. So that's that, blurple, because it's blue purple. Then this is, I think, the most recent one I've dyed up. This, again, is on the BFL base, and this is called Just Peachy, because it's these like yellows and pinks and oranges, and it just makes me think of like a really nice like juicy peach. Again, this one is sort of an ode to the end of summer, to keep those summer vibes going. So that's that one, very sort of pastel and just pretty. And then the Christmas colorway. So again, this is going to be hopefully a repeatable dyed to order colorway. And this one is based off of, every year at Christmas time, they come out with these peppermint, or chocolate peppermint bark things. They're from Lindt. They're like those little squares, and they have like the layer of chocolate on the bottom and then like the red and white peppermint bark sort of white chocolate stuff on the top. And I love those things. Like I love candy corn and I love those peppermint bark things. Like, so it's very seasonal. So I was trying to replicate that in this colorway, and I think I did a pretty good job of it, right? Because you get the browns and the reds and the whites, and I just really think it looks Christmassy without being too Christmassy, right? Like this doesn't have to be only a Christmas thing, right? Because I feel like red and green typically are like very like seasonal. To me, this doesn't necessarily have to be seasonal. But yeah, and so it's just these, this sort of highly variegated yarn. And I will share my secret on how I do this with you guys, right? So this was dyed up pretty similar to the Galaxy colorway. It just doesn't have as many colors. This only has the red and the brown. But the way that I do this, right, is I take the skein that I'm going to dye, twist it up. And typically, if I'm going to dye using this technique, I'll twist it a little bit looser than I would just for like storing it. But I take it, I don't untwist it, right? I just leave it like it is. I put it in some water and I soak it and make sure, to kind of like squeeze it to get the water all the way through. And then I put it in the dye pot, twist it up like this, right? So for this, I did the red first. So I put the red dye in the dye pot, and then I put this soaked skein in just as is. And I just plopped it in the dye pot and cooked it just like I normally would. The trick is just that you leave it skeined up like this. And that way the dye really takes on the outside edges of it, but it doesn't really penetrate in. But because you've twisted it up like this, it's fairly, like it gets through the whole skein because like it has access, like you don't wind up with like half of your skein being really red and the other half not, right? Like most of it gets in there. And so, I do it like this and I cook it until I've, really made sure that the dye has taken, and then I will untwist it and then wash it like normal. And then I'll let it dry, and if I'm going to do a second color on top of it, so like for this one I did the brown on top of that, once it's dry, I'll just twist it up again, and of course it won't be twisted exactly the same way it was before, and then I'll do the same thing, plop it in the brown dye bath, again let it cook, and that creates this yarn that is this highly, highly variegated yarn that has these different colors in it. So you can sort of see how that looks. So yeah, that's how I do these. For ones like the just peachy one, I did the same thing where I plopped it in, and I think I had the pink in the bath, so I let the pink sort of do the outside. And then if I want to add a second color that isn't, splotchy but more consistent, then I'll sort of very carefully unwind it while it's still in the dye bath, and then I'll add that second color that sort of then covers the whole thing. So that's how I do that. So feel free to try it out. I would like to record a tutorial at some point, but like I said, the semester just started, so time is sort of valuable right now. But that's how I do it. It's not a complicated process, and it's not really that hard. It's just a matter of giving it a shot and seeing how you like the results. So I think I said this, but all of that yarn that I just showed off is going to be going into my Etsy shop. I'm not exactly sure when. I'll try and put up just like a quick 1-minute little video or something whenever I get all of the stuff ready, and to let you guys know that it's up, because it may go up before this podcast goes live. It may go up after. I'm just not sure. But yeah, so that'll go up in my Etsy shop if you're interested in any of it. So yeah, let's talk knit along. Basically, since I didn't mention anything for the past month, so our knit along for July and August just ended. If you need a reminder, the theme was green or lace. We got lots of entries. We had 35 entries, so that was great. And I have a winner. So the winner of this knit along was post number 29, which is, their name on Ravelry is Sue S-E-Q. Sue S-E-Q. Your name is Sue, and you're from New Zealand. And I will probably have already sent you a message by the time you see this, so hopefully you'll have seen that already. But anyway, the prize for that is going to be one of these skeins of the pumpkin spice latte yarn that I dyed up on the merino base, and then whatever other goodies I cram into the box to make its way to New Zealand. So yeah, that will be my second skein of yarn going all the way over to that side of the world. Crazy. And I suppose maybe it's crazier for you because on that side of the world it's spring right now, right? Like you guys just finished up winter and you're moving into spring, so maybe fall themed is not as appropriate, but you know what? We're going with it. So congratulations, Sue. I'll try and get your package out in the mail as soon as I can. So that was the last knit along. Let's talk about the next knit along. So the next knit along technically started on September 1st. Again, hopefully by the time you're seeing this, I will have put up the threads for it. But the themes for this one are orange for the color theme, and the technique theme is color work. So either orange or color work. All the rules have stayed the same otherwise, right? One skein projects, that means between 50 and 150 grams worth of yarn. You can submit multiple small projects as a group to make up that 50 to 150 gram mark. I think that was it. Have to be started and ended within the time of the knit along. Any weight yarn is fine, any type of project is fine, as long as it fits one of the themes and fits the sort of like small scale requirement. I think those are the rules. The rules will all be in the thread, which as usual I will link below. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about what color work means, because I know color work can be very daunting because even I am not very good at color work. So different things that can qualify as color work, right? Color work basically means that whatever project you do has to use at least 2 different colors of yarn. It cannot be as simple as like contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes on a pair of socks, right? That's not really what I would consider to be color work. Color work is something like manually striping, right? So you can't use a self-striping yarn like Felici, But if you want to do a manually striped pair of socks, right, where you take 2 skeins of yarn and you alternate the stripes, that's totally fine for color work, right? Color work doesn't need to get complicated. Striped things are fine, right? So striped pair of socks, a striped baby sweater, a striped hat, whatever, right? That totally counts. You can, of course, do stranded color work or like Fair Isle color work if you are ambitious. By all means, go for it. If you're not that ambitious but you want to do something more than stripes, you can definitely do like a 2-color brioche, right? 2-color brioche totally counts. You can totally do mosaic knitting, right? Mosaic knitting produces really cool patterns, but you're only ever working with 1 color at a time, and then it uses slip stitches. So you can totally do that. You can do illusion knitting. That uses 2 different colors, but again, you're only ever working with 1 color at once. So there's plenty of options depending on where your skill level is, because my skill level with color work, not great. Intarsia. You can also do intarsia. That totally counts as color work as well. So yeah, I will, as usual, in the chatter thread, try and put some different examples for those different, different techniques that I mentioned, right? So that you can sort of see some example patterns that fit those different things and kind of decide what you want to work with, or go with orange. So yeah, that's for this next knit along, and that will be ending at the end of October. And I think I will say confidently right now that the prize for that will be one of these Christmas colorways, right? So the prize for that will be one of the Christmas colorways, because that will be ending right about the time that it would be time to start knitting Christmas socks. So yeah, that's that. Look at me, so far ahead on things. So that's that. And then I guess it's question of the week time. I don't really have a good question of the week, right? So my question of the week is, what is something really cool that you did in the past month, right? Because I've been gone for so long, and I even, when I was on vacation, I wasn't even really checking like the Ravelry threads for a while. I've just been a really bad podcaster lately because life has just been really busy, and then I got sick. So what's something really cool that happened to you within the past month? I would love to hear about it, and yeah, let's just tell me that. So then that's going to be it for the knitting stuff. Hopefully this didn't get too long. So if that's all you were here for, thanks very much for hanging out, and I will see you next week. I am going to record next week. And if you want to hear a little bit more detail about what's been going on with me in the past month, hang around and we'll do some chit chat. So hopefully you guys don't mind if I knit a little bit while I chit chat. But so let's talk about what I've been up to for the last month. So like I said, we went on vacation, right? And I vlogged that, so if you want to see what we got up to, there's more details in the vlog. But basically, it was just really nice to be able to go home, and we were home for like 10 days. And by home, sorry, I mean back in Minnesota. We were there for like 10 days, which is longer than we've been able to be back in one stretch at all since we moved out here. So that was really nice, because it just allowed us to spend more time with everyone because we hadn't been home since Christmas. And so, and like the really nice thing was that my dad and my older brother both live down in Iowa. So I don't even get to see them very much when I go back home because it's just hard to get to where they are. And so they drove up together and they got a hotel for a couple of nights. And so I got to spend like an entire day with my dad and brother, which was really great because when I went back for Christmas, I got to spend all of maybe 3 or 4 hours with them. So like that was really a bummer. So it was really great to be able to see them for a longer period of time this time. And we got to spend lots of time with like my mom and my younger brother and Wesley's parents and everything. So that was just really fun. And again, if you want to know more, it's in the vlog. But yeah, so then we got back and I had to go right back to work the next day. And so we got back on Monday the 21st, and then on Thursday the 24th, that's when our semester started, right? So I had to get back to work and get everything ready, and then on like the 23rd, which was Wednesday, I had my TA meeting with all of the returning and new grad students who are teaching labs and stuff. So that was something that had to get going. And I'm also trying to get this student organization going again at VCU that is the Society of Physics Students. And it's something that really meant a lot to me when I was an undergrad because we had a really active one at my undergrad. And the one here just, I think every couple of years it gets going again and then it just sort of flounders because there's not a really strong like faculty advising presence for it. So I've taken on the role as faculty advisor, and I've got, now some officers who are, really passionate about getting it going. And so I'm hoping that we can really give it some good momentum so that even, once I leave this job, it will keep going. Like there'll be another faculty to take the position and it will just really keep going. But so that's been sort of a lot of work because, there's a lot of work on my end as the faculty advisor, and there's also a lot of work on the end of the officers to try and do all like the student organization stuff through the university, because I can't do that. So, so we had our first meeting, not that first week, but this past week we had our first meeting, and that went really well. A lot more people showed up than I thought, so that was really good. And then, yeah, like I said, I got sick as soon as we got back. Well, not as soon as we got back, but like, I think Thursday of the week we got back, so like the day the semester started, I started getting sick, and then I was really sick through last weekend, which was kind of a bummer because, we had decided to rent a car that weekend and, go do some things. We wanted to go to the theme parks and stuff because our passes are coming up, especially for Busch Gardens. Like the pass that Wesley has is only good through tomorrow. So we really wanted to make sure we got out there again. So it was really a bummer to be super sick while we were doing that. And plus, we were going to go looking at cars. So we went up and looked at a car up in Fredericksburg, which is about an hour north of Richmond, up in Northern Virginia. We went up there and looked at a car and found a car that we really, liked. It was the model and the package that we wanted and the color that we wanted. But, it just wasn't quite the one that we like. It had been test driven and stuff, and we really wanted to try and get one that had never been test driven, even that like was basically just off of, the truck and had never been touched by anyone else. So then we went on the hunt for that, which is really sort of tough right now because it is the end of the model year for Volkswagens, and we were looking for a Volkswagen. So it's tough to find the current model year ones because everyone's trying to clear them out and they're not really getting made anymore. So we found a dealership that was going to be having another car in the model and everything that we wanted, with the package and everything that we wanted, in the color that we wanted, coming off of a truck, brand new, no one had ever touched it before. So we kind of wound up buying a car last weekend, and we knew that we might wind up doing that, but I wasn't really expecting to be doing that, and especially because I was, really sick the whole time. Like it was just, it took an experience which is not really very fun, of buying a car, and then made it even less fun because I was all snuffly and sick the whole time. But that was my first experience buying a car because the only other car I've ever owned before was given to me by my parents. So it at least set the bar pretty low, and hopefully every other experience will be better than that. But yeah, we bought the car, and then it came in during the week, and so we went and picked it up on like Wednesday or Thursday of this past week, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great to have a car again. It's the same like model as what we used to have. We used to have a Volkswagen GTI. This is another Volkswagen GTI because, we already knew how it drove. We knew that we liked the old one. There are some differences, right? The old one was a 2-door. This is a 4-door, things like that. But, and of course it's 5 years newer. But, otherwise we kind of knew what to expect, and we knew that we would like it, to the point with it. Yeah, we bought it without ever test driving one. So yeah, so that was an interesting experience. And then it's been, sort of trying to get things ready for Wesley to move. Like I said, he got a job, up in New Hampshire, and he will be moving up to New Hampshire at the end of September, and I will not. Everyone sort of gives me like the, surprise face whenever I say that like I'm not going to be moving with him, but it just doesn't really make sense for me to move because the job that he got, he may not be there for very long. Like it's sort of a training sort of thing that's meant to like put you into other positions. So he may only be in New Hampshire for like a year or 2 years and then be somewhere else. So it just doesn't really make sense for me to move at this point because I have a pretty good job here. I make a pretty good amount of money for what I do, and I have good benefits and everything. And, I get to take classes for free and everything. So it would be silly for me to leave this job after, not even 2 years. Because again, that also looks bad on your resume. To move up to New Hampshire, and it's not like a big town in New Hampshire either. So it's not like there's a lot of other jobs up there. So I'd probably have a tough time finding a job, and then I might have to move again. So the way that we figured it is he will move there, and then sort of once we figure out where he's going to be longer term, or once he's ready to find another position longer term, that's when we will try and like find another place together again. But, for the meantime, it's just going to be long distance for, a year, 2 years, or 3 years, which, I mean, sucks a little bit, but it's not like we haven't done it before. We did it when I was in grad school because he didn't live down with me in Nebraska for the whole time I was there. So it's not like we don't know what to expect. And it's not really as if this was any different than if he'd gotten into a PhD program or something, right? Like, we knew he was going to be moving away no matter what. So, we've kind of been expecting it. But, I mean, it does just suck. Like, it's just a bummer. But, you look at the bright side. Like, I think we're both trying to just look at the bright side of it and say, well, it gives us each some time to kind of be on our own a little bit because we're both very independent people. And it gives us time to just sort of like work on ourselves for a little while, sort of while we're both doing these things to advance our careers. So we're not breaking up or anything like that. He's just going to be moving and I will not. But that'll be interesting. And I'll probably try and vlog a little bit of that process as we get closer to it. But it's just been very interesting and different. And one thing we both learned from it already is that New Hampshire is a heck of a lot further away than we thought. When you move out to the East Coast, at least, sort of where we are and then north of here, everything seems very close. It's like, oh, well, it's only 2 hours to DC. It's only 3 hours to Baltimore, whatever. You just kind of get this impression that everything is very close together because it is. But like from here to New Hampshire is a 10-hour drive, right? Like it is not a short drive. So it's definitely going to be one of those things to where it's going to be interesting to figure out how we manage to like meet up when we do meet up, but we'll figure it out. We're both smart people. But so that's why we bought the car, is because we wanted to get it sort of broken in because it's brand new before we have to make that big long drive up there. And then he will take the car with him, obviously. I'm not going to keep the car here. I will continue to be carless once he moves away, just because it doesn't really make sense for me to get a car. I don't need one here. I can get everywhere I need to go either by walking or by bus or on rare occasions getting an Uber or, renting a car or something. So like I don't need a car, so it would be silly for us to have 2 car payments when we could just have one, and we'll just make it work. So yeah, that's been that. Let's see. So that's been the whole month up until now. So just a lot going on, a lot happening. And then, school started. I'm taking a class this semester. I'm taking a programming class, which is interesting because I already know how to program. Like that's something that I had to learn when I was in undergrad and then, continue to use through grad school and stuff. So, but I'm learning a different language than what I knew before. Like I know how to program in C and Python. And what I'm learning now is SAS and R, which are statistics specific programming languages. So that'll be good. It's interesting. I don't love programming. Like it's not my favorite thing to do. So it's probably not going to be my favorite class ever, but it's a class that I definitely need to take and it will give me valuable skills that hopefully could get me a job later on. So hard to complain. And I just started my teaching this past week. I'm teaching 4 labs this semester and they're all on Thursday and Friday. So it's like a lot of like stuff piled into the end of my week. But, again, that's just how it goes. It's nice because it frees me up in the beginning of the week. So, always pluses and minuses. And yeah, that's most of it. Like today we're going to, it's really nice weather today. It was great. Well, it was rainy yesterday, but it was cool yesterday and it's nice weather today. So I think we're going to go to the greenhouse and take a look at some plants, maybe pick up some more plants, for the apartment, and maybe go to a furniture store because I've sort of been doing I am going to be doing some redecorating, both before and then once Wesley leaves, because part of what I'm going to try and do to make it seem less lonely here by myself after he leaves is to like do some redecorating of the apartment, to take it from like, because we've done everything here together. So it's like this was our apartment and now it's going to become my apartment. So like I really want to make some big physical, visual changes here to really make it feel like this is my place now so that it won't feel quite so lonely. So like I want to find a new desk and maybe some new things like that. So we might go to a furniture store and see what they have for like desks and chairs and stuff. And then I think tonight we're going to head out to Busch Gardens. And then I mentioned this earlier, but I have tomorrow off of work because it's Labor Day. So tomorrow I think is going to be a big cleaning day. That's typically what I do when I have a day off of work, is I just go to town cleaning the apartment, because my mindset is, well, normally I would be working today, so I might as well be doing something productive around the apartment instead of just loafing around, right? Like, I had all weekend to loaf around, now I need to do something productive, like clean, which is something that I tend to not want to do on the weekends, like deep cleaning stuff. I tend to not do it on the weekends because I just don't want to, because I want to just relax, but it's like, well, if I have a free extra weekend day, I should clean. So that's probably what's going to get done tomorrow. So yeah, I think that's that. Hopefully this chit chat stayed shorter than I thought it was going to. I feel like I've been talking really fast. I actually feel a little bit out of breath because I'm, one, out of practice, and two, still a little bit congested, so it's a little bit hard to breathe and talk at the same time. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully this episode didn't get too long. Hopefully we're all caught up. And like I said, I should be recording, again, regular episodes weekly now, barring any craziness. And of course, like, it might get a little disrupted at the end of the month when we move Wesley up to New Hampshire, but you know what? We're going to roll with it, and hopefully things will be back to normal soon. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye!